guys, welcome to my Tip Tuesday. I don't know how many I've done during my time at IndySoft, but today I'm going to be talking about a pretty neat, overlooked feature um, that was revamped in the version 13 release of the software. Um, it's intended for a company that wants tighter control of parts and their inventory in the system. So as you may know, IndySoft allows you to manage service repair parts. Say I have under my company ABC, DEFG. I have three repair parts that I use for my calibrations. I get a gauge, I calibrate it, it needs repair, maybe a change of a part. That's what I use, right? So test part goes into whichever gauge, and in a work order, you have three gauges, and each uses a different repair part. You can put it in this list and keep track of them, right? So, usually what you'll have is an inventory of parts, a price, maximum quantity, etc. I can refer you to another Tip Tuesday if you need to know more about repair parts. So, in the pending work tab, in version 13, that would be on the left, and on top of the other tabs that appear in the main section. If you go to the last tab, you'll see that it says vendor POs. You have this new option to create purchase orders that will be sent to those vendors for them to fulfill the orders and sell you the repair parts that you need in the quantities and prices that you've ordered them. If they need to honor that in different prices, they can also change that. So when you go to the vendor PO tab, you'll be greeted with two grids. You have the top grid here and a bottom grid, which is here, doesn't have any scroll, so I can show that. What this is going to show is the top grid is going to be comprised of all of the vendor POs that you've generated. So I'm going to, just create this guy. So you have all the vendor POs you've generated, and at the bottom you have all the line items for each PO. So for my purchase order number 98, I have 3 line items. For my purchase order 100, I have nothing, right? Let's say you're running low on some of these parts. At the moment, I have 15 of these, and I would want to have a lot more. It's pretty cheap part, so it's small, used a lot. I have 15 of these, but I'm just going to make it so that we have 0. So I really need to order these. I don't have anything. We said we have 15 of these, and we have 10 of these, okay? And you want to send an order to a vendor for company ABC here. So if we go to our add edit, equipment info, vendors, you can find a vendor for that company. And my vendor is called Provider Vendor Incorporated. So this is the person or the company or business that I'm going to be ordering from. Okay, so we start off by clicking this button here. This is going to allow us to add a new purchase order. And this purchase order will have a bunch of data that if you try to click OK, it's going to complain about. It's going to ask you to enter it. So we have the PO number, the company, and the vendor. It's pretty basic information that you'll need. So I'm just going to change this guy to ABC and the provider company. And if I go, you're typically taken to the PO details tab, but if you go to the billing information, this information here is being filled with the billing info of the company ABC. Now, I want to change this guy to go to ABC. It got emptied out. Okay, the information for the shipping information will correspond to the company that you're shipping to. So why are these the same, and why could they be different? Usually if you're a company, say you're a pretty big calibration lab and you have several satellite branches, right? You can order a part under the veil of the headquarters company, and typically in IndySoft you would create a main company and then branches around it. But you can ship it to any of your branches. So if I want to ship it to ABC Child, then I can do that. and the information should appear here. Now, I don't have any information for any of these two. I'm gonna work under the assumption that I am the headquarters and I'm ordering for myself, so my shipped is going to be ABC. So if I type ABC here and click on this, you can actually pick from alternate addresses that are created in the under that company. So say your ABC company has maybe different departments where you can ship the parts to, and you want one of those to receive it. They're in the same city, maybe the same complex, but they have different addresses. You could do that here. So I'm just going to click here and add it to the ship to. So now I have my billing information filled out, and like I said, we're just creating a vendor PO and going with it. You have the PO details tab, which is going to specify, who's buying, what the template is going to be used for the purchase order, because you can generate a purchase order to print and give to the vendor, or maybe even email it. You have terms and conditions if you want to do payment in 5 months, 12 months, or whatever agreement you have with the vendor. You have an expected date where you can receive these parts. I'm going to say it's going to be on the 31st. You have a printed date, which is when you print the actual purchase order. We'll get there. And a receipt date, when you receive it. Because you could expect it on the 31st, but it could be delayed. You also have 5 user-defined fields, 5 numeric fields, and 2 date fields at your disposal that you can rename them in alias if you need to. So you have the Documents tab, where you could add a document that you need to reference later if it's something related to the PO, say PO notes or just PO Excel, right? And we can grab this July 26 errors. That's a file I have. This can now be stored in the vendor PO, and you can reference it later. This Documents tab is also what it's going to hold the oops, I want this shipped by FedEx. What's going to hold the revisions of the purchase orders that you generate. This is to keep track of how things were ordered, and so that people can't really easily change the documents that have been created and the purchase orders, and they can't really fake anything up. You have notes, pretty self-explanatory. And you have associated work orders. Say you have a pretty big work order that's going to require a set of parts. You put it here, you associate it, now you know that it's going to go there. So at this point, I generated the main or the basic information of my purchase order. And now I want to, I did that, and I'm gonna want to specify the parts that I want to receive, right? So this is where the bottom grid, this is what the line items would correspond to. If you can see here, they're pretty much the same grid, left and right. So you can add parts. So I'm gonna find my ABC. I have so many companies. My ABC company, and I'm gonna multi-select. Just do Control and click or Control Shift, and add these parts. So you're gonna get a prompt for each of the parts that you're adding. Now this prompt is going to allow you to specify a description, a quantity, and change the cost. This cost is coming over from what you have stored in the system for service repair parts, right? But let's say that your vendor sells these parts at a slightly higher price. Well, you can say they sell it at $23.50. That's going to be my new price, right? And I want to order 10 of these. I'm not going to fill out a description for these. You get a second prompt for the second part. The actual cost of this one is 5, so I'm going to order 20. I'm not going to change the price because they sell it at the same price. And this one I'm going to do 50. Let's do the ugly number, 53. Okay, so I've done that. And if I want to send this over to the vendor immediately, I can go ahead and do so. So my next step would be to either notify them by email manually or generate a PO revision here. So this button here is our usual report print dialog, where you can print to email screen or the printer. So this will generate a report listed in the print builder under the purchase orders section with the information of this purchase order. So if I click OK, two things are going to happen. You're going to get this prompt and you're going to get the report. So I got the report on the right. And for the purposes of this Tip Tuesday, I have a really, really basic report. Okay, you can customize these. There's many Tip Tuesdays on how to do things in the print builder. That happens, and then you get this confirmation saying, hey, do you want to mark this purchase order as requested? You print the document to give to the vendor PO. At that point, it's really effectively requested. So I'm going to say yes. And you'll see that my purchase order got locked and the status changed to requested. Okay. At this point, I can't add, edit, or delete any equipment, or I can only add documents and edit notes and associated work orders. Anything else is going to be locked. So you do that, and a few days pass. Okay. Let's say it's now the 31st, and I'm actually receiving the parts on that date. So that's where the receive items, which was disabled before. If I mark this as draft again, this is disabled, and if I mark it as requested, it is enabled. That's where this button comes into play. Now, before I continue, I said that I was going to release something in the documents tab. In here, you'll see that the order that we generated, or the report, got stored. This is so that you can keep track of, what changed and what got sent to the vendor themselves. Okay. So I want to receive my items, so I'm gonna select all three of them, and I'm gonna click on this button. So immediately you will be prompted with this screen where you can just say the only editable field here is this quantity to receive in blue. Now it's going to be pre-populated with the max amount or the ordered amount. You can't go any, you can't really get or specify any more than that because you didn't order that many, right? You can go lower in case they send fewer items than what you requested. So I just want to sort by number there. So I'm going to receive 0 of these, 20 of these, and 40 of these. Okay. So what's going to happen is that when I click OK, it's going to prompt me if I'm sure. Yes, I am sure. There's a status for each of these parts that now changed. Okay. The status for my part 1, where I fulfilled 0 of these, is still requested. I still ordered them. I haven't gotten any of that. The status for my test part 2, where I ordered 20 and got 20, is at this point received. It's pretty much fulfilled, right? My status for test part 3, where I ordered 53 and fulfilled 40, is partially received. Okay, so at the same time, when I did this, the status of the vendor PO changed to partially received. So let's click OK. We finished with the work, the purchase order, and let's check out what happened. So I only got from, did I select the wrong one? Okay, yeah. I only got from my vendor. I got parts for test part 2 and test part 3. So let's take a quick break and go to the edit, and this is where it becomes pretty cool. If I find the parts under my ABC company, and let's say test part 2, where I got 20 of them, or 10. Let's see what happened. Actually, I don't know. At this point, it's been a while. I'm just role playing here, and I don't know what happened. Well, I can see in my add edit repair parts, I can see what happened. I started at 2:59. I was doing some tests before at 2 and 2:49, but at 2:59, which is pretty much the time, if you can see down here, the time that we're in, I started with 0 and I received 20. It was an addition. So change end with 20. Okay, cool. So the vendor PO system ties with the inventory management part of IndySoft, as in the sense that it's keeping a log of what happened. So if I go to test part 3 and look at the same thing, at 2:59, I had 15, I received 40, I ended up with 55. Now let's go back to purchase order, and bad news. Test part 1 is just not available. So we can back order them. We can say back order all unreceived parts. We can cancel the unreceived parts. And we can adjust the quantities of each. So in this case, I'm just going to say, hey, I couldn't receive any of them, so I'm going to back order them right now. So now back ordered, the quantity changed to 10 and everything else is 0. And if I go back here, my status is back ordered. And for test part 3, I actually got the 13 that I needed. So you'll see that when you click on the receipt button, the 13 will be automatically filled, because it's expecting you to basically fulfill whatever you have left to fulfill. So I can say, okay, I'm going to receive the 13. But yes, my purchase order is still partially received. It's going to stay partially received until I fix these back order items, right? But now these two are received. So if I get out of here, we're talking about test part 3 where I received 13 more. If I go back to my test part 3, go all the way down to my inventory change events, you'll see that now I received at 303, I received at 55, received 13, and ended up with 68. So lastly, if I go back here and I decided, you know what, I'm not going to really order this from this vendor, I'm going to order it from another vendor. So I'm just going to create another purchase order. For the sake of this purchase order, I just want to cancel whatever I have unreceived. Now, these are back ordered. You can adjust the back order, cancel quantities that are not unreceived, to say, all right, I have 0 back ordered and 10 canceled. Once that happens, your status has been turned to cancel. You can go ahead and click on the top left and mark this guy as received, and that should close the date, the receipt date, and basically the purchase order should be completed. And it's going to disappear from your list depending on what you have filtered here. So if you have canceled to exclude or received to exclude, they're going to be excluded from the list. So if I click here, they're not going to be excluded anymore. So that's a pretty long-ish introduction to how the vendor PL system works. There's a lot more to this, like security items that you can configure for people to not be able to edit certain fields or to change from certain statuses to another. But I think that should be the content of another tip too. So for now, this is what I had today, and thank you very much.